Hi everyone. So I didn't get to finish the demo, so I'm doing the rest of it in this video. So to start, let's look at the score function. There has been a mistake in the last code in the last few minutes that I was working on. So I'm going to fix that problem here in score, and we can start from here. So what we are going to do with the score method now, what we're going over each of the turns that you take for the whole game. So your eye would go from 0 to 19, covering 20 blocks. What we can do here is to actually, instead of going over all of the 20 blocks, going over just the 10 frames. And to make that change here, so I'm going to define I here, and then here I can have a frame that goes from 0 to 10, and we'll get back to this, but 10 is a constant value. This is not something that we're gonna change. It's a value related to the game. Like you always have that 10 frames in your game. It's not something that would change. And they say frame plus plus, so I'm going from frame 1 to frame 10, and I starts from 0, and every time we add 2i because each frame has 2 blocks. So let's go to our code, to our test class, and run the tests. Okay, so we have 2 tests that are passing. So those 2 tests that we already had, they are passing, so we're good. Now let's see, how about this new test? Uncommented, run the tests. And yeah, so as expected, these 2 passed and this one didn't, because it expected a value of 16, but it's getting 13. But why? So here, this piece of code is not considering the spare situation, meaning that the sum of these 2 is equal to 10, then we are going to have a different way of calculating it. So this code, these 2 lines, what we can do, we can say else, and the if is, so if there's a spare, and the condition for the spare is if plus rolls I plus 1 is equal to 10. So if this is true, then this is what we do. say score plus equal 10, because we know we have 10, plus the next block from the first block from the next frame. So it would be rolls I plus 2. And I plus equal 2. It's the same as here. Now with this, so we are extracting on the test. Let's see what happens. So here we choose a name, roll spare. Okay, now we have three passing tests. That's good. So we're checking. So far we are covering some examples of spare 2. It's time to refactor. So we're looking at the score method. Let's see what are some problems with this code. So the first one is here. We have a variable called I, which does not explain itself at all. We don't know what I is. So we, as the designers of the code, we know that I is the frame index. So we want to change the name of this variable. Yes, so we want to replace this logic. Right click refactor. This is how you can refactor. Choose extract variable method without having to change. You can name it here directly, or we can do what I did. Every line. Go to more options just to see what are some of the options. So you right click on for this one. You go to refactor. We just want to change the name and rename. So what we're doing is we're checking if we have it. So I want to name this frame index. And here we go. It automatically changed all of the I's to frame index. Isn't that convenient? So what's the second problem? Second problem here is right here in this if. This is a long logic, and for someone who isn't familiar with the code, or even for someone who is familiar with the code but haven't worked with it for a while, this is not very clear. And a much better way of doing this is to make it more readable. And how do we do that? So we know that we are refactoring right now. So right click, refactor. What should we do? We want to have a method that checks that for us, rather than having the logic directly in here. So we click refactor. Now it is a much neater representation of the same logic. And yeah, so we want to test this. We refactored. We want to make sure that the changes we made haven't messed up anything. So let's run the test again, and we have 3 tests that are passing, and that's all the tests we have, so that's good news. There is another thing that we need to refactor before going forward.